I'm Professor Ogola. I'm an economist and governance expert. I'll spend most of my time formulating strategies. I've formulated 1,423 strategic plans. I have also been able to train more than 1 million executives. At the same time, I've written more than 8,000 articles in the Business Daily, Standard Media, among other media houses. I've had more than 800 media interviews on issues of economy, policy, governance, and leadership. I was also been able to write over 830 curriculums. I've been able to be a speaker in community development. I've been a champion of community development, community growth. I work in communities. I've been in the seminary for over 8 years to be a priest. Of course, I didn't make it because I was fired from the seminary. Reasons held under witness protection, story for another day. I'm telling you all this just to understand my experience. And people ask me, why Solomonic Economic Model? It comes exactly from those experiences. I have a multidisciplinary education background. I'm an economist. I'm a strategist. I have done city planning and urban policy. I've done theology. I've done philosophy. I've studied anthropology. I have studied many languages. If you ask me, I speak English, I speak Swahili, but those are normal things. In the seminary, I was able to speak and write Greek because that was a requirement for training to become a priest. I was able to speak and write Hebrew, which is the dialect called Aramaic, which is the language Jesus spoke. Because if you want to be a priest, you must speak the language Jesus spoke. Read it and be able to speak it, so that when you read the Bible, you read the Bible from the original language in which the Old Testament was written. And also, you're able to read and write the Bible in the language in which it was written, which is Greek. So that's why I have all those religious backgrounds. I've been trained, for example, my first degree was at Uganda Matters University in Uganda. And then I got some 3 degrees. I got an MBA from Catholic University. I was able to graduate in a Sada Business School, which is the 4th business school in the world by Financial Times ranking. I got my PhD there. I got a master's there. I have 14 World Bank certification. So all these things is amalgamation of what is called multidisciplinary angle. So when you ask me about Solomonic Economic Model, it comes from my education background, but also comes from experience. And I can tell you, out of all those my 5 undergraduate degrees, 2 master degrees, PhD, 14 World Bank certification, those one only explains 20% of the knowledge and the wisdom that I get when I was working. But what I've gotten out is working in communities, like teaching over 1 million executives, formulating over 1,423 strategic plans, and involving myself in community development, talking to real people. I was also able to privilege to be in this economy when it is actually touching. So the Solomonic Economic Model is coming actually from the people, because God gives us wisdom. In fact, Solomon did not graduate from any university. Solomon asked for wisdom from God. And Solomonic Economic Model is inspired by God. And if you ask me, if you look at my book called 10 Lessons from 1,000 Strategic Plans, it's an inspiration that I've gotten. And I've written the last chapter saying Jesus as the ultimate strategist, because Jesus is the ultimate strategist. Why? Jesus grew up the largest organization in the world called Christianity. I'm sure if I ask you, what is the world's largest organization? You'll tell me about Google, tell me about what? IBM, never. It's not even Apple. It's not even Microsoft. The biggest organization in the world is Christianity. Of course, followed by something like Islam, then maybe Hinduism, and other follows. These are larger than Apple. They are larger than Google. Remember, religious inspiration is the most fundamental inspiration world over. And that's why I can tell people that the best book to read is your faith book. So if you are a Muslim, all the answers to your problem, whether they're economic, social, religious, political, they are right there in that book, Quran. If you are a Christian, all the answers is in the Bible, which is actually a library of books. most of the strategies that I formulate comes from there. Even Jesus developed his own value proposition when he began to preach. And if you go to Matthew chapter 15 onwards, you find the story about the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes is followed by the story on when Jesus talks about happy the person. Jesus talks about later and says, I have come to tell you that whatever Moses taught you is true, but I've come to realize its fulfillment. And he talks about how to live your faith on spiritual level, not just physical. And that's why Jesus says that if you wish your brother well, you are a Christian. That you are not a Christian, that's according to Muslim. You are not a Christian until you wish your brother well. And the Bible says that do to others what you want to be done to. And God orders that if you love me, love one another. It's a condition, and it's not about anything else. So love one another is a condition, that you must love one another if you love me. So God tells you that you can't claim to love him if you don't love one another. Love a brother. These are all things that you can see, even in law. The highest level of law, if you talk about hierarchies of law, the highest level of law is divine law. From divine law, which comes from God, then we derive what's called natural law. Then from natural law, we derive what's called legal laws. And that's what governs us in the country. Can you imagine that the Constitution of Kenya is at the third level, but the highest law is divine law, which defines all morality. Remember that some things are moral, all things are moral, which are legal. But not all legal things are moral, which means that divine law sits at the top of all sources of laws. So Solomonic Economic Model is divine. So that gives it a way in which it can work in any economy. It can unite people. It can ensure that there is equality. You can see that there is what you call fairness. You can see whether there's equity. And you can find a place where people can have themselves peace with the economy. With a Solomonic Economic Model, taxes will not be painful. In a Solomonic Economic Model, use of money, there'll be nothing like misuse of funds, because the Bible even talks about Ananias, who stole money and was punished. The Bible is very clear when Jesus told people that give to Caesars what belongs to Caesars, give to God what belongs to God, which means that in Solomonic Economic Model, there is no fight. So citizens should give to the head of state what belongs to him, and give to God what belongs to him, and use what belongs to them. And the head of state should not take, should be given. So what is it that we can design an economy where people willingly pay taxes? I'm sure you know that is hard, but I'm telling you, under Solomonic Economic Model, all these are possible. So we have already explained what is the original thinking behind our Solomonic Economic Model, but this is not just something on heaven, it's on earth. Solomon asked for wisdom to govern Israel, and Israel became a first world country. Israel became a world-class country. So Solomonic Economic Model is the path to world-class thinking. And world-class wealth, world-class success, world-class achievement begins with world-class wealth. When you see some of the most successful people who have gotten their wealth in the right way, if you analyze very well, they were world-class when they were childhood. Their thinking was world-class. Their wisdom was world-class. It doesn't mean they went to school necessarily, but they have a wisdom. We have seen people who have made it big in life without so much education. I'm a professor, but not necessarily that I must be wise. There are some people who are wiser than me. So I'm not even saying I propose Solomonic Economic Model because I'm the wisest. I've just identified that wisdom can help. But now, the wisdom I'm talking about is not my wisdom. It is the wisdom of a people, a wisdom that begins from a household, a wisdom that begins from our community, from our villages, from our spaces of business, a wisdom that goes to our county level, a wisdom that goes to the national level, a wisdom that goes to our continent, and a wisdom mostly that helps the developing countries. Remember this book, the biggest audience for this Solomonic Economic Model is developing countries. I'm not saying I don't care about developed countries, but you see, everyone must choose their audience. My audience is developing countries. But there's nothing wrong with it, because the world is not a vacuum. The world we operate in a global village where whatever happens in developing countries affects what happens in developed countries. Whatever is happening in developed countries affects developing countries. Remember, the global financial crisis that hits the world. it also affected developing countries. When COVID came in, was in China, we call it Wuhan virus. When Wuhan virus reached UK, it became US, it became a global pandemic, and it affected developing countries. Now, we have heard about Russia-Ukraine war. When Russia-Ukraine war was taking place, people thought it was just a fight between Russia and Ukraine. All of a sudden, it affects the global economy. Now we are seeing something happening in the Gaza Strip between Hamas and Israel. It is going to affect the world in any way. For example, when some leaders commented and supported Israel, Russia was not happy, and China is not very happy. And when you comment that you support Hamas, some other people will not be happy. But you see, a world where we have this versus that is un-Solomonic. But don't you think there is a prudent way to look at it in a way that both Russia and the US do not have to be having antagonism? Don't you think that Hamas and Israel wants to coexist? That's Solomonic. When Solomon met the two warring women who are fighting because one has slept on a baby and killed, then the other one had her baby, and now this was claiming the other, he didn't go on the sides of the women. He went Solomonic, using prudence to know who is the owner of the baby. So in most of the situation, we think that this is against that, but we find that it's un-Solomonic. There is no one against the other, but we are pursuing the same thing. For example, in Hamas-Israel war, what people are looking for is peace. So whoever preaches for Israel or against Israel is actually un-Solomonic. The person, what we need is how can Israel and Hamas coexist? In Kenya, we have the thinking about that the countries are divided between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, but that is not true. The truth of the matter is that there is nothing that is Kenya Kwanza and there is nothing that is Azimio. Fuel is fuel. Kenya shillings and Kenya shillings. When the dollar goes up, everybody is affected. When there's no food at home, everybody feels it. So it's un-Solomonic to divide ourselves between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. We need to be Solomonic. We cannot say that we are Azimionomics or Kenya Kwanza nomics, but we should be Solomonic. And that is the true north of this country. So Solomonic economic model find a way on which how can we run our tax policy in a way that everybody benefits, whether you are rich, poor, black, white, which tribe or that tribe, it does not matter. Which religion does not matter. It just focuses on what is good for Kenya, because there is no suffering that's only meant for a certain religion. There is no fuel station for any religion. There is no bank for any religion. There is no supermarket for any religion. There is no school for any specific religion, tribe, race, poor, rich. All of us can buy from anywhere. So Solomonic economic model looks for coexistence, and the extreme views of this versus that is un-Solomonic, because the truth is always in the middle between the two extremes. If you talk about the world economies, capitalism versus communism, you talk about socialism versus capitalism, you could talk about the issue on neoclassical economics versus others. Those are not the issue. The issue is Solomonically, what is it that can grow the world economy? And by dividing us into different types of economic zones is not Solomonic. Solomonic thing is about uniting people and coming with a solution where everybody feels at home. Everybody feels peaceful. Even at home, husband versus wife, those are not the issue, is family, household. So household units, how can we run a household whereby children have what they require, the mother, the father, the house support units, like for example, if you have a house help, your neighbors. This is all about Solomonic economic model. So Solomonic economic model is unlikely, but of course those are smaller units. But talk about that, the bigger picture of the economy is when should we increase taxes? When should we lower taxes? When should we increase interest rates? When should we not do it? What is the underlying variable? The issue is, can we have more access to goods of life when we increase taxes or when we lower them? Does collecting more taxes lead to increasing or lowering the cost of living? Can the cost of living be decided between people sitting in bomas, for example? When we have this, what we call bipartisan, two people together, but where is Kenya? So Solomonic economic model is not interested in siding with any view. It is partisan to the constitution of the country, partisan to the professionalism of running a country, partisan to your faith and religion, partisan to principles of good governance, partisan to running an economic model that makes everybody enhanced. For example, two things which are important in Solomonic Economic Model. One is, can we have what's called decency? Decency means people should do what they're required to do. If you are a father, be a father. If you are a professor, be a professor. But if you are a president, what does a president need to do? If you are a CS, behave like a CS. If you are an MP, do decently do the work of an MP. And are you mixing whereby you are oversighting the government at the same time also you are running a fund? For example, should MPs oversight running of public funds at the same time they should also be running a CDF fund? Should the governors be running the funds they run at the same time when you finish a governor become a senator? So I'm trying to say, can we have decency in this country whereby we treat everybody with respect? When you are given a position of power, use that position respectfully to people. At the same time, the second thing we need is opportunity. People don't need sympathy. People don't need lectures. People need an opportunity. And I'm attesting to that. To become a professor, I came from a poor family. People who saw me never just pitied me, but somebody gave me a lifting hand as an opportunity, and I took it up. Those who are strong, use your power to lift people up. Those who are weak also have a chance in society that they'll be lifted up. So we just need decency and opportunity. Opportunity to border borders to thrive. Respect a border as a border, respect a border as a border. Don't take advantage of them. Maybe you think they are ignorant. They are not. No one is ignorant. They have their own wisdom. For someone to have a wisdom to buy a motorcycle and start riding it to feed their family without you helping them, they are wise. I've seen some wise borders more than even professors. I've seen some wise mamambogas who knows how to do stuff. My mother just went up to Form 2. But my mother knew how when my father gave her 1,500 shillings per month as a family income, she used that in business and multiplied the wealth and was able to make it 4,500 to feed 11 children family. That's wisdom. My mother is not a professor. Now tell me, if you give me 1,500 shillings now to run a family, I will not manage. So don't you think my mother is wise? So what I'm trying to say, Solomonic Economic Model is supposed to look at all those cadres. And I end by saying, Solomonic Economic Model is about a kima mashinani, local wisdom. Let's look at everybody's wisdom to contribute to the national growth. Hekima mashinani. The second one is rasilimali mashinani. There are local resources, for example, in Coast Province. You can go to Taita Taveta, you can go to Kilifi, you can go to Malindi, you can go to Taita Taveta, you can go to Anariva, you can go to Lamu. Everything has resources there. You can go to the upper side of Kisumu. There's a lake region, blue economy. You can go blue economy in the lake region, blue economy in the coast. Go to Marsabit, northeastern. There are also resources which are there that can be tapped into, that can grow those economies locally. And that's why Solomonic Economic Model proposes that there should be nothing like a national budget before we do regional budgets. If you go to Germany, you had to do, first of all, regional budgets before you do national budget, because we have studied in economics that when you do national budget, in view of trying to achieve national priorities, we ignore the regional level priorities. So if I say I would be in a position to make a decision on how economics are being run, we'll do first of all regional, sub-county, county budgets priorities is when you now build up the issue of national economies. So the bottom-up economic model, which was proposed by the president, if at all is an economic model, was supposed to look at, first of all, we do our budgets at the sub-county level. Then we do them at the county level. Is when we build that budget into the national level, because we have taken care of everybody at the other lower levels of government. Then oversighted by the Senate and the national government. But when we want to say that we are now doing budget at the national level, that's a trickle-down economic model, which for me, it is not that it's un-Solomonic, but the most important thing is it is Solomonic. To merge between the national, let's say the lower level of government, like county level, sub-county level, but do the government one and see where the two meet. That's Solomonic. So triple down, the bottom up, if at all it exists, it just needs to look for national level priorities, and then the local level priorities, and see amalgamation of it. But just doing a national budget as a blanket statement, thinking that you're talking about national priorities, does not exist, because economics shows that national priorities becomes political priorities. Because if you're head of state, you want to win an election, your interest will be, how can I have priorities on what I want to do so that I can win the next election? And that's how politicians think. So for us, we want to be moving away from being political and moving into what's called economic, which is Solomonic economic. And maybe if I add, it's also about leadership. How do we choose our leaders from the ward level, from the sub-county level, to the county level, to the national level? If everybody in the sub-county is wrong, but you're looking at the president saying cost of living is high, you may not be fair. Because I know that if you go to a gym and you want to build your strong chest, you'll be told to build a strong chest, you have to build a strong back. But to build a strong back, you must build strong legs. So your legs is the MCA, your back is your governor, and the chest is your government. Then the head is the Solomonic Economic Model, which brings the governance, which means straight governance and leadership, which if you add governance and leadership with a strong war chest at the national level, with a stronger back at the county level, and with the strong legs at the county assemblies where you have your MCS, then you can deliver a fantastic government. But if you just assess to me now from the leg level to the back level, to the chest level, and to the head, which is leadership and governance, tell me how good we are. It is not bad, but what we can say, we can come with a Solomonic way to balance all those things and come up with a good blueprint to go forward. And lastly, Solomonic Economic Model is to begin to run our national state resources with a private-driven mindset. What do I mean by that? Private-driven mindset is whereby we have to know how much money are we borrowing. That is what's called credit. How much is entering? Credit. How much tax are we collecting? That is credit. And where is it going? Debit. So if you look at a national government, see, we have the credit side of it, we have the debit side of it, and the left right of the hand and the right hand of our side can know what so and so is doing. It works. But we cannot apply the Bible basically by saying the left should not know what the right is doing. In transparency, corporate governance, the left has to know what the right is doing. In biblical terms, it was not about showing that there's no transparency. It was about showing that when you give somebody something who is weak, you should not take them to the public and show people you have done something for them. That was the main thinking. But nevertheless, transparency, even Jesus said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, because there's transparency. So if you run this country with a public sector mindset where there's efficiency, there's accountability, there's efficacy, we will find that we can make this work. And I said, and I repeat here, that this country has immense resources. We need to know that when we convert that resources, which is input, into output using Solomonic Economic Model, we can get what we want. Imagine Kenya has one of the most advanced human resources in Africa. Yet Kenya is only better than South of Sudan in ease of doing business. Kenya has broadband technology. Kenya has high-end financial, well-developed financial system. How can our ease of business be only better than Juba? Tanzania is ahead of us. Uganda is ahead of us. Rwanda is ahead of us. Djibouti is ahead of us. We need to do something on that part of the software. And that's why we talk about knowledge-based economy to transform our economy into economic prosperity that actually we are looking for. Thank you.